And thanks for being here, everybody. I'm really happy. And tonight, I think what we'll go through is the beginnings of how I got started and go through a little bit of how I put together a collection. I thought that would be kind of an interesting thing for everybody is how we build on something. And then talk about, I do a lot of runway collaborations, and this is my beautiful assistant, Victoria Cumming, and so we're both Vicki, not hard to forget, but she'll talk a little bit. Victoria does all the press, and I'll let her talk a little bit at the end of my first part, and then we can continue and we can do, I don't really mind if you kind of ask questions as we go or if you want to save them till the end, whichever you like, but I think this should be, I feel like, I want to be close to you, so if there's a question you have, just raise your hand and, we can answer it at the time. So, so we started in kind of, this is at the beginning here, there's a picture of me and my business partner, Karen. And we originally were from Detroit, and Detroit actually influenced us, I think, a lot in our designs. It was kind of a fantastic place to grow up at that time, because you had a mix of cultures, you had a mix of music. Was really, Detroit has fantastic music, and I think the things that I listened at, and the kind of has influenced both of us. I think we both really feel like it had played a big part on, our development of our style. There's always kind of like a bit of a vintage thing happening in Detroit, even when I was young. So I think even when I was young, that was a little while ago, but like you could still find things from the 20s and the 30s, and so we started digging around. So I always wore a lot of vintage from kind of an early age, and was interested in the past and mixing it with the present. And I think that is probably what Erickson Beamon style is a little bit about. It's kind of mixing past with the present, and for something that's new and modern, and how it comes out. So I moved to New York in about, when did I move to New York? 1975, and had a pretty good time there. I was a Studio 54 disco girl. Then I kind of did also the downtown rock. So I worked in a place called the Mud Club as well. So I worked in clubs and had a lot of fun. And I think one day Karen said, I think it's time for us to get serious. Let's start doing something with our lives. And she was already working with a friend of ours called Robert Molnar, who is boyfriend with the Fred Schneider from the B-52s. And he used to, we all know the B-52s, I hope. And he designed their costumes, and then he started designing his own collection. And then we couldn't find anybody to make the right kind of jewelry, and I was always a craft-oriented person. I always knit, or I always kind of embroidered, I always did little things with my hands. So we ended up just making the jewelry ourselves, and it just turned out, really great, and it was really fun, and it was and we started by designing, it was crystals strung on suede. So pretty basic stuff, but at that time, first of all, there was probably 10 jewelry designers in all of Manhattan that we could have ever even gone to, and none of them had what we want. I mean, now there's 10 jewelry designers every block or two. I mean, it's just like there's so much more competition out there. When we started, there was absolutely nobody doing anything, so that allowed a lot more freedom than, right now, what you have to compete against. So we started this crystals on suede, And we used to be able to get, it was a particular goat skin. It was Italian goat skin that we used to get. And it actually really was very super strong, and it was very stretchy. So at, with Charlie, and they don't make it now, so we can't even, you know, you could not even find the same kind of suede. But at that time, it was really a good material. And you could cut it very fine so you could get the crystals on there, because the crystals will cut through the suede quite a lot. But anyway, so we made these quite big pieces that were beautiful. And the first thing we did a ad in Interview magazine. Karen said, oh, let's, you know, this is really great, let's get our friends to take a picture. And we, you know, we had no idea what we were doing at all. And we just had this ad, and it was just, it was really someone's breasts and with this necklace on it, and it was, I think even if you looked at the picture now, it looked quite modern, you know, it was good, it was fresh, it was something new. And all we did was put our name and our phone number on it, and our first phone call was for Bergdorf Goodman. So that was like a good starting point. And then from there we continued to keep making the jewelry. And this is another thing we'll talk a little bit later on about trying to shift your idea too, and not just stick to one thing. But, you know, we stuck to the suede, the beads with the suede for, you know, like a year and a half. And then I think at that time maybe we couldn't get the right suede, and we were like, oh, what are we going to do? And I was like, oh my God, you know, and it kept breaking, I think. So we decided that we would use string instead of the suede, you know, just like, and kind of revolutionized the rest of Erickson Beamon. So Karen and I have both, through our through the years, just have learned all jewelry making skills as we've developed. So as we've developed, we've learned, but now that's 30 years later. So I have 30 years experience making jewelry, and I think the best thing about, you know, Erickson Beamon is that when we started, I think one of the first things we did too was back then is Madonna had her album Like a Prayer, and it's kind of a picture of a necklace on her jeans or something, I can't even remember, but anyway, it's our necklace on that. But I think now, to have started, you know, with having Madonna, and then still working with, we just did a few of the headpieces that Madonna did for the Foot Super Bowl, which was just in January, so we just did 2 more. We didn't do Madonna's one, I think it was Phil Tracy, but it was, we did Nicki Minaj and M.I.A. Yeah. So, but also we've done, we'll have some pictures to show, I think actually on here they are, yeah. So, oh, there's, you know, we have Beyonce. So, I think that was the Beyonce picture. This was a piece that we made for a stylist that had nothing to do with Beyonce, and they ended up just borrowing that piece, and then it was really, that was turned into a poster, so it was like a really great picture. But we've been really fortunate to work with all the stylists, and I think that's something, I think when you put a collection together, you know, you have to, you know, go out, don't sit on your laurels, you have to really go out. I think you have to go out and meet people, connect with people, and, you know, whether it's, you know, find out who kind of has your same style. I think the main thing for me always is jewelry has to be honest. It has to come from within, from an honest place, and then if you find other people who you can communicate on the same level with, I think that's already a connection that is, if that makes sense to you all. I don't know if it does or not. But, anyway, we've always been lucky with the stylist, and but I think, you know, 30 years later we're still doing Beyonce and Madonna and Lady Gaga, and we do Michelle Obama and Samantha Cameron too. So I think that also shows you the variance of, you know, what we do. I always, one of my philosophies is kind of what women want, you know, what women desire. We don't really do men's, so you'll have to excuse me not talking too much about it. But we do try once in a while.
Yeah.
But it's definitely about, I think, a desirable something for people to want to. And also, I think it's a little bit, I always also talk about clothes being more the intellectual feel of what people have on, and jewelry being the emotional connection. So I think that's why I think jewelry has so much emotion, like, you know, inherited jewelry, you know, you're connected to something somebody's given you along the way. I think it has a very high emotional value. And I think even if you're talking now, this jewelry is very much different from the process where what you're learning in the school. It's not fine jewelry made, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. And but somehow, but I'm still trying to make an emotional connection with people. You know, I want to have a emotional reaction out of them when they see the pieces, and also kind of a feeling for dressing up, you know, or like, oh, today I feel like a goddess. Oops, not her. All right, but she looks pretty good there. I met some.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Is she a goddess?
Yeah, she's a goddess, I think. Anyway, I think she looks like a goddess, and I'm pretty very happy. And so when we kind of started off, we kind of started by, you know, this ad in the magazine, and then we did, just got the phone call from Bergdorf, and then we started making collections, and we started selling at trade shows. And, you know, 30 years later, it's more or less still the way that we make our, you know, our selling. It's, you know, and I'll talk you through that process a little bit, but we can talk first about some of the other people. Well, let's go through what else is on here. So that's Lady Gaga. We've done quite a lot of things with Lady Gaga as well. And that's something that was in vogue. That was just our collection. Kate Moss. Always very happy with Kate Moss, Molly. What else? And that's, this is a shoot for Numero magazine, which is a French magazine. And the stylists work outside of New York. And this collection is something that's like kind of a collaboration. So my partner Karen designs as well as I design. So we both come up with concepts. And I think that's one of the things that's kept Erickson Beamon alive and Erickson Beamon grown, because I'm designing here and she's designing in New York. We trade ideas back and forth, and there's times where I think, you know, I think everyone has like a little filtering period where, and sometimes in New York it's, you know, minimalist time and no one wants to look at jewelry, but somehow in Europe, you know, John Galliano or somebody comes along and, you know, puts tons of jewelry on people, and somehow that has always balanced out. So when they're having a kind of rough patch there, I'm kind of flowing a little easier here, and so it's always, the flows always work very well, and I do think that's probably why we've been able to keep lasting. But I think this is a particular good example of both collections kind of mixing together. Karen and I have worked together for 30 years, and kind of thing where we can finish each other's sentences. And so a lot of times she'll start with an idea, and then I continue with it. And, you know, kind of the same thing as like being best friends with someone, you finish their sentences. So she'll start with one concept, and I'll continue with it. Or, you know, that'll tweak something in my mind, and, you know, then I'll kind of continue with it. But Numero is a great magazine to find the stylist for, because they're really creative, and there's some of their stylist work in Europe, but I think a lot of them work in New York. But that's another thing that I think what you should do is look through magazines, and when I think there's a particular stylist who really talks to you, or like really expresses a same idea, I would jot that name down, and have a search for them, and see what you can find out, and have a search for them and send them your just say love what you do. And that's what you have to be brave and go and say. I mean, I knocked on doors the whole first 5 years or so, never afraid to kind of just say, love what you do. And everyone always loves a compliment. So just tell people that you love what they do, kind of, oh, would you mind looking at what I do, kind of a good trade-off. What else is in? That's just another, this is just, some of our kind of favorite things. These are quotes from different designers. Over the years, we've worked on catwalks of many different designers. In Fashion Week this year, we worked on Erdem and Osmond, which I actually brought some of those collections. So this is from Osmond, which I think we've got some pictures later to show you anyway. And this is the Erdems. And then we did Maria Bresch-Vogel and well, you can talk about that too.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then, but over the years we've worked with, Alexander McQueen, Anna Sui, Antonio Berardi, Calvin Klein, Christian Dior. Anyway, we worked with a lot of people over the 30 years. Some, we've got stronger relationships than others. It's quite nice to go in with a designer who you have a feel for and, create for them, and then try to establish that relationship, try to find people that you relate to. I think it is relating to, muffling on. So you'll have to excuse me a little bit because I have a little cold today and I am not feeling. We've just come through our biggest selling period. So our sales, from January, we start doing the designing. In New York, they do it a little bit different because in New York, they design through the year because they work with a lot more. There's a lot more shoots being styled in New York than there are here. So they constantly get to refresh themselves with different shoots. And so Karen usually builds a story when she's doing some of that work, whereas we are like really just, tight because we're making the production in between doing the designing. And so in January, I finally get a little window where they say, okay, you can start now. So, this is some of the other catwalks that we've done. That was that was from John Galliano's own collection when he was still living here in London in 1993. So I think that's right before he went off to Paris. That's for Alexander McQueen, was while he was at Givenchy. This is a big headpiece. It's a little bit of his drawing that we had.
Sorry, I'm not quite sure how you work.
That's also Alexander McQueen. That was actually the one a little bit before the other the
Well, now it's just going, so.
no, it's just going. It's all right. And that's Roberta Cavalli. We worked on theirs when they relaunched. That's Phil Trace did a show in Moscow. We did this big necklace. Anna Sui and my partner Karen have had a relationship doing their shows for about 28 years. She's worked on every show for Anna Sui, and that's the kind of relationship that's really worthwhile. The other one was one of the Swarovski does a lot of sponsoring, so I don't know if you can go backward at all. Oh no, the next one.
Oh,
No,
sure.
it's going backward. That piece was made for the Swarovski runway rocks, and that's always quite a good thing to look for, because a lot of times Swarovski's doing partnerships. And there's other things to look for. Like I do a lot of judging. So there's a contest in Italy called ITS, International Talent Support, and that's something you should all write down, because I think they take on, you can enter whatever you want, when you want it, and they kind of, there's a prize, Swarovski gives the prize for that, and it's a really great thing to be a part of, because they have, all sorts of young people kind of starting off there. I had seen like Michael Vanderham, who is one of the designers, new young designers here. He was entered into that first. So even people here, you see, but now they have just started this jewelry prize last year, and so that will be on offer every year. But it's also really good to look for these kind of jewelry prices, because it's a very good exercise, because you have to put together a very big portfolio to say, and have a good reason behind it. And it was amazing people that had entered it. They were like, really, people had worked very, very hard on it. It's just a good exercise to make you think through what you want to do. Anything like that. There's things to find if you, go and search for them. So, at the same way, I had a lot more freedom when I first started, because there weren't as many people doing it. But now you have so much competition, you really have to put the energy in to, get noticed. So I think it's really applying for these prizes and, going out and, connect with things in magazines or blogs or whatever you like there. That's just another Anna Sui. That's Richard Nicol. Ashley Isham. That's kind of English. That's Isa. And that was a really nice, beautiful shoulder piece that we had, that we're laughing at because it got stolen somewhere. Someone stole that out of our shop. We don't know how. It's not my commonplace thing to put in your handbag, but there you go. These are, I loved this. This was for Richard Nicol. They're, just paper clip holders, that we've done with Swarovski. And Meadham Kirchhoff, we worked with them. Kinder. And that was Ernum last year. Maria Grashvogel, we've worked with quite a few seasons, and it's quite nice to, if you find a designer that you can work with and you kind of have the same language together, that it's quite good to kind of improve that relationship, because it just, each collection we've done for Maria has come out better and better. I think one important thing for me to say though about working with a designer though is I think you have to be very sensitive to what the designer might like about your style of jewelry that you're making. But in the end, they really want to see their viewpoint. So you have to be sensitive to their viewpoint. So at the end product shouldn't be your viewpoint. It really needs to be their viewpoint, but in your own style. And being truthful for yourself. I've made a lot of mistakes through the years by kind of like a designer approaching me and saying, you know, like, I think there's one designer had asked me to make kind of like English armor, and it really wasn't my style, but I really wanted to work with this person, so I like tried, and really I made a complete mess of it. And it was, you know, it's something, and then you don't please the designer so much, and you're not, so if it's something that is not true to your own self, so it wasn't true to myself, I was trying too much to do what he wanted to do, not in my own way, and it just didn't work. So somehow you have to have that balance of both the designer's vision and, you know, your own talent. That's Jill Sonder. We worked with Ralph Simmons last season, which was a super duper pleasure, and it was really a great collection. And what? And I've got the earrings on. I never take them off. He's a very nice guy, and he, you know, fashion business is hard because this season he got let go right before his show in Milan. They hadn't really told him that they had hired back Jill Sonder, the original name of the brand, has taken over. And Rafson's really an amazing person. He had a really great team, and everybody, you know, really loved him and worked with him. You know, and it's kind of amazing to meet assistants that love the designer, because sometimes they're pretty moody and, you know, prima donna-ish, but he is a really nice guy. So I think something went wrong there, and sadly he's not going to be doing Jill Sonder anymore, but hopefully he'll be somewhere else. Great.
I'll take you then.
And I'm sure Jill Sonder will do a good job, and she's lost her brand name about, I think it was bought by Prada, and she didn't get on with Lucia Prada's husband, and then so she left the company about 3 times and tried to go back and forth. So anyway, hopefully she'll be settled in and Raph will find someplace good. But it's not such an easy business, because here he is making the most beautiful collection and doing such a great job, and you still get shafted. You know, it's not easy.
Excuse me.
Yes.
What's his name? What's
What?
his full name?
What's his name?
Yeah, Ralph.
Ralph Simmons. There's Ralph Simmons, and he has his own collection as well, but it's mainly a menswear collection. He's based out of Antwerp, but he's really a nice guy. This is Maria Greshvogel from this season, which she did, like, she wanted to have like a 20, she always likes it to be, because her clothes are quite soft, so she likes it to be, with the jewelry a little bit tougher, and she wanted to have like a deco feeling, but having it, you know, sharper edge to it. That is Osman, which is this sample here that we've done. He's kind of a young, up-and-coming designer, really nice guy, and he wanted something that just looked like it could have come from any, like a treasure chest from, you know, somewhere, you know, not specific to anything. So, you know, could have been, you know, partly Asian, partly Middle Eastern, partly, you know, just like a treasure chest, and he wanted it to have a very luxury feeling. And this is Erdem, and they were just little collars that kind of went, they're necklaces, but they sat kind of just perfect right on the collarbone. And then we did little brooches, and we did some earrings for that show as well. And that's just for the show just got. And then I was just going to talk briefly about, in New York, the last 3 seasons, we have been doing a presentation, and that's just something, it's not even about showing our jewelry so much as just kind of, it enhances the brand, and it kind of helps get, you know, it just gets more people to come see it and talk about it. And it's like this season, we didn't even hardly show jewelry. Karen decided to make dresses, but somehow it's just something that, like, but it was really a great show. We had, I don't know if that's on here.
Which one? Oh yeah, it's on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this was the first one we did, which was just kind of, it was good timing because it was right after Black Swan came out, so it was all kind of great time. And funnily enough, the I think it was the Bolshoi Ballet called Karen and said, "Oh, you know, we love what you do. Is there anything we can do in collaboration together?" So it all just kind of, you know, somehow life is a little bit like that. Sometimes it's spooky when things just happen and fall in your lap, and you just got to take it and run with it. And, you know, just, you know, don't even think about it, just do it. And then this was the second one, which Karen made these, like, really super big sculptures. And also it's called The Redemption of Eve. So it was all about, I'm not really sure what it was all about. The Garden of Eve. And Eve getting her own back. That's kind of what it was. And then this was the most recent one, which was, we had this band called the Citizens Band, which is this woman called Karen Elson, who's a model. I don't know how many of you know who she is, but she was married to the White Stripes, Jack White. And she has this band, and they're really great, and they agreed to perform at our little do. And it's kind of a quirky band. It's very vintage, and she has different people coming in and out all the time. So, you know, I think there's about 10 people on stage of all kind of ages. And in the end, Karen Ellison couldn't perform because she had to come back to Europe to do a some kind of shoot. But she got Zoe Kravitz to take her place, which was quite good. We were happy. And then Sarah Sophie Flicker, who is the other girl, main person in the band, is amazing. I don't know if we have pictures. This is a little bit, this is the presentation with the dresses I was saying, you know, so this is like, there's some jewelry, and there's jewelry on the dresses, but it was really more about, Karen just decided to have this. It was, we kind of based it on the Weimar Berlin period, which, so we wanted it to be like a cabaret with little tables, and then the girls were dancing, and, you know, everyone got hot and sweaty. The hair and makeup was great, and it started running, which is kind of the perfect thing. And that's some of the dresses. Karen kind of hand-dyed everything. And that's the hair and makeup. The hair and makeup was great. So it's kind of fun to be part of that show. It's not really, but I think in a way, sometimes when you're kind of building on your brand, you need to kind of explore other things just to, you know, get the name out. And I don't want to confuse you, but you'll have enough to just like do your own collection and, you know, get your identity going. I think that's the main thing, is, you know, finding some sort of identity is really important. But I think, like I said before, don't get stuck like we were like thinking, how are we going to do those crystals on the suede? The suede keeps breaking. You know, you have to. And I think that's another really important thing, is because I've been in business for 30 years, I've seen a lot of designers come and go who, you know, we always say they're like one idea people, you know, so they come out, you know, and it's like maybe at a particular point in time they come out with one idea, but they don't know how to expand upon that idea. So And in fashion, when you're working in fashion, I don't know how many of you kind of intend to kind of go in that direction, but you really have to have, you know, changes very quickly. We do, you know, a few hundred pieces per season, I would say, like about 500 pieces per season. It's like, and then like the next 6 months, like everyone says, oh, I can't believe, you know, when they come to see us, but it's like, yep, this is all, you know, brand new. So,
How long is the season?
like 6 months. You know, in New York it's quite different, and also here it's faster. Like I'm still a little bit old-fashioned, and I'm also, with the way our business is set up, I can only kind of get in there to design probably every 6 months.
Because our production is in-house. So.
Yeah, but the...
Can I just ask a question? How many people do you have designing now then to produce 500 pieces?
So we have, there's about 20-some people working in the whole place, and I would say there's probably 5 people that I design with. So, and in New York, I would say it's a little bit bigger, but so Karen has a team similar to that, and then I have a team similar. But mainly the people who are designing with me have been there quite a long time, so we kind of all on the same wavelength. But then I can talk a little bit more about how we start designing a collection. Are you guys interested in that? So, okay, yeah, absolutely. That's good. That's great. So, yeah, so we have, exactly, so we have like about 20, a little over 20 people. And then Karen and I kind of start by exchanging ideas. And then in between time, like I said, she's probably done like that numero shoot, which some of those pieces were originally things that I had done here, but then she'd taken it a little bit further for that photo shoot. And then when she starts design, you know, so she'll say, oh, you know, I worked with, you know, so-and-so, and we're doing, you know, these ideas. And so we do kind of somehow, and Karen's not a computer person at all. So the most I'll get from her is, you know, a phone conversation, or she'll maybe get some people to send me the...
Katie just put, how we sell, apart from at wholesale shows, is we have a link. So we can't show that here, but Katie just put their homepage to show you.
Oh, right.
Clients would go to this to see all the pieces. So that's what that is.
Oh, okay.
So then, and that's how they would, if they can't make an appointment in Paris or Milan or London, they might buy wholesale of this.
So, and then...
So you said all of your productions are made in-house, so the 20 or so people make every piece that you sell?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, we're kind of crazy. I don't really advise doing it that way because it is, we don't make, consequently 30 years later I'm still struggling with money all the time. So I think, you know, there's several different ways to, you know, kind of work with that. I think a lot of times kind of working with factories.
Not what the mood boards. So
What's that?
the mood boards.
Oh, the mood boards are gone. Unless they're at the end. Oh, strange.
She wrote it on the thing, which is weird.
I was just trying to show you how, yeah, that's what Victoria's looking for is, someone had brought them and we thought they were on here.
Sorry.
But-
when you say wholesale, how many pieces do people buy them of those? When you say someone looks on your website to buy them wholesale, how many are you?
Then people just buy ones and things, you know, usually we put a limit of, like, to do an order, we say it has to be about £1,000. So we wouldn't start off with doing anything kind of less than that, because it's like, you know, it's just too hard work. And,
But, sorry, how many of each item would you produce in order for, or do you...
sometimes 0. Sometimes, you know, if we're really lucky, we get 30 or so items on order, but I would say
Most
So you
people
don't
just
produce
buy
them
them.
until somebody's ordered them? Is that the way it works? Or
Yeah, we produce to order.
you produce to order?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so what we do, so what I do in January, for instance, like I kind of talked to Karen on the phone. She said, we were just doing something with this one stylist in the vein of an 80s feeling. So I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll do a pink story, kind of 80s. Then I wanted to do something for this year for the Queen's Jubilee. So we've done, something like that. So it's kind of a mixture of kind of 20s and, yeah. So that's kind of more, but I think it's the one with the little crown there, though. So it has, like a crown and, just our version of, what our tribute to the Queen's Jubilee. So anyway, what I come up with, about 10 different ideas, and I try to rein it in for those 10 ideas, which, can you go back to the first story? I mean, the first page, and then that one. So this is more or less just 2, 4, 6, so 10. Yeah, there you go. So, and it's just feelings that, I kind of want to explore. Also, alchemy originated from a little bit as an extension from this thing we did with Madonna for the Super Bowl. And so it has more of it has a slight Egyptian feeling, but I don't know, maybe you could check. Is there anything on there?
You can't get.
Oh, okay.
It's just the page. It's not.
All right. So anyway, so I kind of come up with these ideas, and then I will then sit down with the team of people who are designing with me, like the 5 or 6 people who are working together, and I'll discuss the ideas, and everyone will say, oh, I like, that one, that sounds well. And then also you kind of decide kind of what format of jewelry making you're going to use. So the thing at Erickson Beamon, what we are quite unique with is that because everything's made in-house too, and we do several different techniques. So a lot of times when you're working with factories or something, they're usually only good at like one thing, or whereas, so we can do, putting this together, we'll put fur with, beading, and then, but we do some soldering, and then this is probably, that's all more or less just been put together by hand with, a pair of pliers, and that has very little soldering on it. So kind of like I think of a theme, and I think like, oh, who's going to be the best at that thing. And then I make up some mood boards. And what there's a formula that I do try to stick to, which is once you have a brand identity, and it's kind of a good formula to keep in mind. So 50% of what you're going to make out of and I would never suggest that you ever make, that many samples. I think you'd be, really happy to get 2 different looks done, I think. I think that you don't need to start off with more than that. But I think 50% of it should be your core brand identity. So what we were trying to do is like, what people come to Erickson Beamon for, I would try to provide that. 25% of that should be like a trend buzz idea, like a real fashion forward, something that, would get people talking, which would be more like this story, which, it's kind of kooky. We're not, we're not going to sell that many of those.
But the press love it.
The press will love it, and they'll, it'll get more attention and people will talk about it. And then 25% of what you do should be just kind of basics. So a hoop earring, or, just something that you'll be able to sell a lot of. So that's, that's a good formula. And I, every season, think about that in my mind. Like, okay, have I worked that? So you always want something to grab the attention, but then you want something that's going to sell as well.
Going back to the fact that you do everything in-house, is there a particular reason you chose not to go and outsource or manufacture?
I'm a control freak. I just, it's really what we really feel, Karen and I both brag about. I mean, we have to move it forward a little bit at some point, we will, but, and we're trying to explore other ways to do it, but I think both of us feel like by making it in-house and by making that, it almost, each piece gets its own personality. We feel like it has a personality. When you see things, like I also do a collection for debitums, so like when those things come through, I don't think they don't have a soul, and they don't have, when I think you're making something in-house, it somehow has its own personality, and we name every piece, and it's like, and I watch every piece being, made, even into production, I'll go, so, and there's flaws that way, because you could get probably some things. For instance, we make jewelry for Maria Gresh Vogel, who they have an agent in the Far East, and the Far East doesn't like our quality, because they are used to, just something being standardized, where, so they'll come in and they'll go, oh, you didn't do this right. I said, you know what, you pick out a piece of any jewelry from our shop. We have a shop on Elizabeth Street. And I'll find you 5 or 6 things wrong with each piece. I think it's part of its personality. It's part of uniqueness. And I have a feeling that I think China's going to start getting more and more expensive, and I think it will come back to more European. I think as you guys develop yourselves, I think European manufacturing will be more sought after once again. So I think it's, going to Italy is quite, in Italy you could look for factories in, there who kind of work in, but for now, it's just like a control thing. Just haven't been able to kind of let it go, and I'm never satisfied with it.
When you say in-house, is it kind of like an old school Chanel thing where you're making it in a house, or because you said you've only got 20 people?
No, it's like a workroom, like here. I don't know, Lee, have you ever been to my studio? Yeah, you have been. So we have like a shop upstairs and offices, and then downstairs everybody's kind of making jewelry. It's very cluttery and very chaotic and very hectic. And we're all cramped in there, but I think it's.
So starting from the very beginning, like you talk about, say, you do all these pieces in house, and say one particular market says it's not, it's not perfect, so we don't like it. How do you go from the confidence of going, well, actually, that's what makes it unique, to, oh, maybe I could have done it better?
You just have to, stand by your guns and say, if you don't like it, go to China, And, yeah, so this is kind of what it is about. And, I mean, there are things that, imperfections that are probably things that we're not happy with either. But I think all along the way, we're constantly trying to perfect ourselves and trying to make it better. I mean, certainly, I think people particularly have problems with, plating. I think the plating process is very difficult because it's very hard to find people who, I don't know, do you have connections to people doing that kind of, so through here? What? But anyway, the plating, sometimes, platers are very hard, and you have to get a real relationship going with them. So, and, nothing's ever kind of perfect here, and it's expensive here. So, I mean, something like that, in the long run, might be better to, outsource. Well, definitely outsource. We don't do it at all in our place, but, I mean, that's the one thing we really have to, so we're relying, there I'm relying on somebody else, and already I'm unhappy because it's out of my hands. We're not doing it ourselves. We put a lot of the finishings on ourselves. So, antiquing and all of that kind of thing, we do our own in-house. So anyway, and then also I like to review I look at the season before and think what was the best sellers and what were the duds, and you try not to revisit those duds, and you see what was wrong. And usually the best sellers are a price point, so we're quite expensive. So usually it ends up being a price point thing that people are, something that's easy to sell, and usually in what kind of a price point? I think about 50.
Yeah, any smaller earring usually sells really well, and then they'll get like 5 smaller ones and 1 big show one for the boutique or something, but they know they can sell them.
And then each of these groups, for instance, that you can go into. So each of these groups, I usually try to figure out, I do like 3 necklaces. So usually collarbone necklace, a long necklace, and a small necklace. And then 2 bracelets, 3 earrings, 1 ring, 1 brooch. You try to build a little story of a whole package for someone. So obviously if it's a jubilee, we did a lot of those headpieces. The headpieces are really popular right now. A lot of people, kind of wearing those. Not so much that one as these are really great. And they're great for bridal. Also what's quite nice to always do like a little bit of a pearl collection, because there's always that extra selling, for a bridal customer. And we have, a lot of brides coming in, but it's a good market, extra market. Anyway, that's, I think. Anybody else want to know anything more about building up once we've designed this collection of, let's say, 15 pieces of jewelry, then we do, several of those, and then we take our things. We go to London Fashion Week. It's not a great place to sell, though. I can't really, I don't highly recommend it, because you don't really get orders. The place you get orders from is Paris. And as every single person who's in fashion says the same thing. And there's several shows in Paris that you can go to. I think New York also has quite good selling. You can either go to New York or Paris, but I think people come to London to look, but we really we're lucky if we get 4 orders here, whereas in Paris we get
20 a day.
20 a day.
Sorry, can I ask, what shows do you do in Paris?
We do Tranoï, but I've done it for over 20 years, so I got pride of place. Anyway, people know us for being there, so it's a show that really works for us. But what is really great for us about that show is they have, and what we really pride ourselves on is trying to get back the customers we have. So we have about 90% customers returning. So, and I think that's something that is
I'm selling through.
And then, well, I guess about 8, and then at that show it's about 8% customer returns, and then you pick up maybe another 20%. So that's kind of the way you kind of can keep building on something as well. So, but I think always treat your customer right, and that, the customer is always right. Whatever they want, always just be as nice as you can.
I understand their shop.
Yeah.
And is Tranoï more costume jewellery based, or do you have fine jewellery, fashion? What's there? Yeah.
They have some fine jewelry. They have some other people
They have
doing.
diamonds and they have fine. But
It
it's
is
kind of
more
more of the
fashion
fashion
oriented,
edge.
yeah.
Yeah, everything in there is definitely fashion edgy kind of. I think if you look online, you can find it, Tranoï. I think there's many other shows even
The box is quite good.
The box is the other one you've heard of.
And Premier Class.
Premier Class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, Premier Class is probably a really good place to get started. I think there's even more buyers going through Premier Class. I think that's definitely is like, you know, produce a collection. I don't know, do you guys want to know about how you work out costings, or, you know, I think that.
I suppose the issue of currency conversion and also postage, because if you're dealing with European clients and
Well, you sell
set
everything
euros.
ex-factory. There's a thing right on your little thing, just the ex-factory, so they all have to pay for the post. So that's either you put it at the bottom of the invoice, or so you never have to pay for postage.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's little simple questions like that are very important, so that, you know, which is a great learning skill, because here is like a great place to learn those little questions. Like, I think somewhere at, you know, I don't know, those are important.
And do you price in euros though, and do you ever find that
Euros,
because
dollars,
of...
and pounds.
Okay.
So we work out the prices in pounds, and then when we're selling, we put all three currencies
The
on
exact currency
the
on that
piece.
way. Yeah.
And you know, you can sell it in any currency. A lot of people love to buy in dollars, you know, so you know, don't be afraid to sell them. You can open up a dollar account.
And how do you find that with prices changing though? So obviously at the show you're going to give them 180 euros or whatever at the show, but then 2 months later they've taken that price and then the currency exchange rate's going to change.
I think
Do you
you've
find
got to
that
add
as
in
well?
just like that little bit extra in your pricing, so that there's going to always be a little bit of a variance. But I think what you have to be is confident that, you know, don't shortchange yourself when you are working at the price. So I think, I mean, the basic formula to me, they don't let me do the pricing anymore. I'm terrible. But we have a sheet, and you put down your labor cost, and then, you know, that's always when people starting off, you know, they really cheat themselves with. So don't do that. You have to figure out how long something's going to take you, and then you have to think of like a fair price, £10 an hour, or, you know, something like that. You know, don't, you know, even if you're making yourself that piece, you know, don't shortchange yourself, you know, at least. At least put that in, and then you put your materials down, and then, so yeah, your hours, how long it's taking. So, and then you just add that up together, and you add 2.7. Yeah, I think it's 2.7, and that
But for
should
your
be your
wholesale
wholesale price.
Okay, so the 2.7 is your profit, or, well,
Yes.
So times the cost of materials and the cost of labour times 2.7 would be your wholesale
Take it
price.
from cost to wholesale.
Okay, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Back to sending your products or approaching stylists. Do you give them pieces, or do you ask them to buy a piece? Like, how does it work?
No. I think what you have to be strict, because I think people do take advantage of people. We're really strict, and you know, you have to harass people to get things back. No, I think you just make up what you're doing. And sometimes you do a collaboration with a stylist if it's important enough, or if that person really, you just say, I love what you do, let me make something up, what kind of story. And they usually are working on, you know, some kind of idea of for their shoot. Usually, I actually why don't you talk about that a little bit?
So yeah, I think you should be firm with them. I mean, I guess it depends. I mean, lots of designers, when they do start out, may gift an important stylist or magazine. But I think you have to, if you are going to do that, I think you have to be really choosy about who you do it with, and strict, and make sure that you don't just be giving out jewellery all over the place, because that's your profit gone.
Well, why don't you explain how you get the people to come in there?
Well, I mean, my job, I'm very lucky because it is quite reactive, because we have got 30 years experience, and people know us. So we have amazing coverage. But, I mean, I always outreach. We have a really good database that's been built up over the years, and the relationships that I've built up with the stylists and the magazines from doing the press days, from London Fashion Week.
Yeah, so we will do a press day when the things come back after we've done our selling. We open it, we have like a press day.
Show the press, get them interested, and then, I mean, if there was a particular magazine that I really wanted us to be in some months, then I will make sure that I call up the magazine, the stylist, whoever works for it, and just say, oh, we're doing this story, would this be of interest, what are you looking for? And because we do 10 different stories, and they're so varied, I generally can find something that would work with a magazine story. So if they say we're doing a story and it's all like deco, I've got something. But then if they turn around and say, well, we're doing like postmodern, I've got something as well, which is something that is quite unique about Erickson Beamon. We can service so many different kind of looks and styles, so that really helps as well. But yeah.
So you give them the pieces and then you say...
It's on loan. So we have like a loan docket. We document the pieces as they go out. We have all the details of where they're going. They pick up. They usually get it for about a week, agreed time beforehand. You always get a return date. We need it due back on this date. And if it's not back on that date, the next day, I either call them or I ask my sisters to call them. And generally, I'm quite strict with that. And it's not.
But for example, before Victoria, that we had that picture from Beyonce in the Goddess headpiece, and she. They had borrowed pieces from us. I don't know if the stylist had seen it in something, or anyway, we sent it to them. And then I think the girl who was there before was a little bit afraid to me, like, I said, I heard her like really like thinking, what am I going to do, what am I going to do? And I said, well, what's the problem? She said, oh, this guy hasn't given us this piece back, and it's been 6 months or something like that. And I said, what? Like crazy. So I said, well, let me have that. And, I wrote an email like, and, we need that piece back right now. Like, what the hell are you doing? And, I mean, you have to be firm, but say it in a little bit of a nice way. And but he knew I was quite angry at that point, and then I think, I might have even called him, and he said, listen, he says, coming back tomorrow, but you'll be really happy with the result. And I said, and I hadn't heard anything more. And I was sitting at a fashion show in Paris and actually opened up that post. It was something sitting on every chair, and it was the big poster. Did we have that in there?
Yeah.
So, and it was the big poster, and I thought, you know what? I am happy. So it's like, but you have to pester, don't let something go. So I opened that up and I thought, yes, I think I can be happy.
But we still deserved our headpiece back.
Yeah. But we still got the piece back. We don't let, a lot of these celebrities want to keep it.
She can afford it.
Yeah. But people still, they think, I think people are probably, there was a little period where I think all of those people were really expecting things for free, but we're very strict about never give, unless you really want to give something and if you think they're really going to talk about you to other people or something, then, maybe that is...
I mean, it depends. People press handle it differently. But I think in the last 2 or 3 years, all PR houses have really cut back on that because there just hasn't been the money. In samples, instead of having 2 dresses a season, they only have 1. They have cut down on that a lot. People just don't really have the money anymore,
So, and I think that the stars aren't expecting so many things for free anymore.
I do think it's changed quite a lot.
So your work with Lady Gaga, does that mean that she's buying her pieces, or are you giving it to her as advertising?
She borrows them.
She borrows them.
We work through her stylist, who will come in for an appointment, choose pieces, and again, same thing. I document them as they go out. They're out for, say, a week. Maybe if she's travelling, it'll be 2 weeks, but it's very rarely.
If she would make something for on stage,
yeah,
that's something that would be totally a different thing. So, but if it's something, she just kind of goes through the outfits so quickly that you know, I think she just needs fresh things all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she has commissioned New York and paid New
Yeah.
York for a couple of things that were then used on stage. I think if something's going to be going on a road with that particular person, I think
Then it
they
just gets
need to
done.
pay for it. You know?
Which is what happened with like Erica Badu. So it kind of depends on the person.
Yeah, yeah, like Erica Badu came in, loved it, and she kind of, you know, paid for everything. So it depends, each person is a different story. Depends, you know, who their stylist. I mean, we don't ever really meet.
No, the celebrities don't generally come in. It's usually the stylists that I would work directly with.
I mean, we've had Paloma Faith come in, but
Yeah, and Erica Badu.
Erica Badu. But
When you say stylist, sorry, because before I thought it was like a photo shoot stylist, but it's a celeb stylist that you deal with. It's not a photo shoot.
I deal with both. What you tend to find is most of like your top editors on the magazines are also the real money is styling a celebrity or a personality. For example, like Anna Bromelo, who's the editor of Tatler, also does Elle Macpherson. So they'll Keira Knightley is Letha Clark, who also does. She styles all the Chanel shows now. She has her own magazine. So they'll kind of probably be doing a celebrity as well. So they'll have their fingers in lots of pies, which obviously helps because that's how an up-and-coming celebrity would suddenly appear in like a Chanel dress, and it's the power of her stylist, not necessarily her, that dress has been put on her because they trust the stylist and they trust her reputation, and so that's how it works. So, yeah.
I saw a picture of Jessica Alba with a vintage 1950s Chanel bag, and I was just like, how can you find one of those anymore? And I guess it might have been.
Yeah, I'm sure it would have been her stylist that found that. Yeah. So yeah, they'll all have, well, generally they all have stylists, and generally that stylist is also working somewhere else.
I mean, that's a nice thing to explore, though, is kind of looking at vintage things. You know, kind of going into antique shops, kind of looking. But I do think it's kind of always to create your own style is kind of looking at the old, but like trying to create, you know, something that's more modern. Never to try to just copy something at be too precise with it. Really, you know, because you need to get your own personality into the stuff, into the piece. So kind of like being inspired by something. And a lot of times older things, like even like a piece of Victorian jewelry or something, you know, it's be very hard to remake those nowadays without it being a fortune. So it's like kind of just taking one idea from something like that and pinpointing what you know, particularly like about that piece, and then just trying to interpret that, you know, in an easier, more modern way. And that's kind of a good way to start developing, you know, what you're doing. I mean, how many people feel like they've already got a style together? So, you know, about a quarter. So, you know, it's, but definitely pay attention to what I'm saying. So definitely, I think you know, even if you have a style and you have a really great idea, what you'll need to work in fashion if you want to, you know. I think in fine jewelry, it's much more long-lasting. But if you're setting your heart on some fashion, you just need to change the color or, you know, do something to change that. So it's buyers all want